Please welcome Adrian from Gameloft Romania talking on Sniper Fury. Give a warm welcome. Hi, applause.
Thank you. Thank you all. Go. Waiting for the first slide. And we have the first slide. Okay. So the talk today is called 7 Years of Sniper Fury Content Production Pipelines for Live Service Game. I've been working on Sniper Fury for 7 years. So this will be a very nice opportunity to kind of like delve into what happened for the content creation part of the game. I'm clicking. Doing the clicky. Click harder, maybe. Click. No. Maybe I'll reach the end of the presentation very fast. Yeah, no problem. Holding. Turn it on and off again. It always works. Click. Click. Back. Yes. Awesome. So first, a bit about my background. I joined Gameloft Bucharest in 2011. I've started as an associate producer on Nova Free. I've worked on The Dark Knight Rises, the Android version, then moved to Modern Combat 5 as a producer, and then from 2014 and beyond, game manager for Sniper Fury. Click. About Sniper Fury now, Sniper Fury is a static shooter in which you collect and upgrade weapons and gear to complete missions across various scenarios around the world. It's a mobile game, but we also published on Steam. It launched in December 2015, so it was created in quite a short period of time, about 1 year. And lifetime, we have a little shy of 70 million users who play the game at least once. Another interesting part is that over 7% of our players have been with us for over 7 years. So retention-wise, we are pretty good. Sorry, just one note, if we could start the timer as well, that would be great. What is this talk about? Basically, I will discuss our content pipeline across the project live. I will explain why items are the lifeblood of live operation games. And I will share some examples and best practices about content creation. I will not cover project or product management or other topics. If you are interested about these, reach out to me afterwards and we can discuss. Now, going back in time, Sniper Fury 2015, we're releasing the game. This is basically how it looked then. It had limited content. We launched with 3 regions in the game accessible. We already had 2 more upcoming to be released whenever we wanted in the live ops plan. We had a single player mode, we had a PvP mode, and we had, of course, event. Our content at that time mainly consisted of weapons, sniper rifles, assault rifles, squad mates. This is the typical Sniper Fury content update in the early phases. We would release 1 region in which the players would have to play various missions, either sniping missions or assault missions. And we would have content, weapons, bullet skins, camos, various. But most importantly, it was themed the same as the region. So now, on this slide, it's an example of a virtual region. I think it's called virtual in the game as well. And the content associated with it. Various weapons, items, and squad mates to the right. During the first year, basically for each update, we would create around 10 weapons, 5 squad mates, 5 flags, 5 camos. So not that much, but please remember, this is like the first year early start. We didn't scale yet. Some of the questions we asked ourselves, because we had to create content every 1.5 months: what style should we use for our content? What questions would we ask in order to answer that? Basically, like, what do users want? What do users like? What is cool at the moment? Oftentimes, we would look at what was happening cool in the market, and based on that, we would create some content. Also, movies, franchises that we can include in the game. And in time, we actually had two collaborations with Studio Canal. We had both Terminator 2 and Rambo 3 events in the game. So we were able to design content that was inspired by these movies, either weapons, squad mates, or even a gear set. Some examples of early stage weapons. Here, as you can see, we had many inspirations. Each weapon, each event, each happening in the game, we tried to tie it with something. So we looked for motifs, we tried to implement traditional elements, we tried to explore as much as possible various genres. We had a very diverse player base, so, we try to not focus on only one type of specific style and try to explore as much as possible. The main objective was to be fun. So you can see there in the bottom center a voodoo doll that was used in a Halloween event, and basically the shoot action for that was that the player stabbed it with a pin, and then that gave the enemy a instant headshot. So it was quite fun to design and work around this. Again, the mantra was fun. And otherwise colorful, you have a Chinese New Year dragon, top right, some other traditional Chinese voodoo elements. So a lot of fun happening in this. What was the early stage process? So how do we create those weapons? How do we add them in the game? How do they work? We started usually with a 2D concept done by a 2D artist, then moved to a 3D model by a 3D artist. A texture artist would create the texture, the nice looking motif design. An animator would create the animation and the shooting action. And of course, this basically is the path from inception to adding it in the game. But we also would need some sounds done by a sound artist, a name for the weapon. I don't remember the name for the voodoo doll, but every name, especially for more interesting weapons, came with a story. We had, of course, to check it with legal that, it's legally okay to use it. We're not infringing on any possible issues. And the incredible operations team inside the game team would integrate the weapon, basically input the stats and everything that went along with this. Now, after some time, Sniper Fury was doing okay, was successful, and we started adding features, and we started adding quite a lot of features, and there were quite a lot. So I don't have the kitchen sink here, so I'll stop at real-time arena. But various game modes, various features that used existing content but also required new content. You would see like gear sets. When we launched, the player basically had only weapons, but afterwards the player was able to equip a gear set, was able to use it in PvP. Other players could see his gear set, his or hers gear set. We added new squad mate types. We added new features in the game, like the Battle Pass or the Clan Battle Pass, or even a real-time PvP arena. Of course, all of these features required content. So if you remember, I mentioned at the start that content is the lifeblood for live operations games. And for us, with each feature, we had to create additional content for it or expand existing content types. So for example, when we added new squad mate types, we had to add new models for them because they had new abilities, they used new weapons, so we couldn't expand on what was already existing. Of course, for weapons, we just expanded on the categories that were there: assault rifles, sniper rifles, and everything. But a lot of items. So we realized that we had to adapt and to scale. Some of the first lessons, I already mentioned scaling. Scaling is crucial. So when you realize that your content volume basically doubles or triples from one update to the other, or from a specific period or quarter to the next quarter, or from year to year, you need to be able to adjust. You either ramp up resources, you optimize production, you adjust allocation of people, maybe you change some roles. Another thing that we did was to repurpose content. So content that was used for the gear sets, we used that to create squad mates as well. Because we already have that content, we could repurpose it. For the weapons, you saw that we had quite a lot of unique looking weapons at first, but in time, when it became clear that we needed more and more weapons, sometimes we would just use the base model and adapt the texture, create a new weapon using the exact model of a previously existing one, but giving it a new feel and new look. Sharing is caring, right? So we can also share content between projects. That's very important, especially if you have several under your supervision. This is an example of repurposing content. On the left, it is the gear set, one of the gear sets in the game, and on the right, the squad mates that were were created based on that gear set. So as you can see, squad mates each have different abilities. They're different characters that you use in the game. And using the same base model, but equipping them with specific weapons, we were able to create this category and generate more squad mates by reusing the gear set on the left. About sharing is caring, this is, I don't think anyone kind of like recognizes these. Maybe some old people, I see some smiles in the room, okay. So on the left, it's a clan boss in Sniper Fury, but that actually is the end game boss of Nova 3. And on the right, it's a gear set that was used in Modern Combat Versus, another game developed by Gameloft. So, of course, we adjusted the models, we created new textures, new looks, new feels, and luckily the kitty gear actually is in tone with the Dev.Play logo. I realized that a few days ago, so this was a lucky happening. Talking about how the process also evolved. After some time, you saw that we needed to ramp up in terms of features. We ramped up in terms of content production. So we had to look a bit at how to possibly adjust or improve the pipeline creation. As previously mentioned, we had the full pipeline to the concept, 3D model, texture, animation. But this talking with the artists, of course, and sharing with them our objective of scaling even more and asking what could be done to improve, to help on this. They were very resourceful. And basically, we were able to remove the 2D concept part because 3D artists were comfortable enough after working for several months on this type of content to do it by themselves and propose new models. Of course, we still used a texture artist to give the final artistic touch to the weapons, but that was one of the first improvements that we did. We reduced the amount of 2D concepts required because the artists, the 3D artists, were able to step up and create new creations by themselves. Now I'll advance a bit further in GE. GE is our Gameloft term for game evolution. Basically, after the game launches, the live operations turn into game evolution here. We added an update to the PvP base. We added a new type of event. We added a new feature, the Lucky Draw. We have another new type of event and even yet another type of event. The survival event went live, I think, last month. So we are constantly adding and trying new features in the game. We may remove some features that are not working that well. And of course, with each new type of feature and with each new iterations of features, we need new content for it because content. For the PvP base update, we added new items, companion drones. For the demon event, we added new bosses. For the other types of features listed here, we basically further expanded the need of items. We need more weapons to put them in the survival event as well. We need more types of enemies to share between the various game modes of the game. So everything is constantly growing, constantly expanding, so we need to adapt. Now, finding the rhythm in all of this. Some things that we further did in order to improve and optimize the process, we tried to reduce collateral friction as much as possible. So as previously mentioned, we have to check items with legal, we need to create sounds for items, we need to create names for items. So working with these teams and trying to find solutions to optimize, to work in batches, to reduce as much as possible the friction that was outside of the game team. This was very, very important. Aim to have a buffer. This is one of the nicest things to have. We constantly aim to have 1/4 ahead of content secured at all times. Of course, this rarely happens, but just by aiming to have content in advance, we are aware about this, and it gives us from time to time enough buffer to, I don't know, if we want to say, hey, we want to try something new for this Halloween, let's see if we can create some additional content, then that is a very good time to use such buffer. It's very dynamic. As mentioned, we rarely have a full quarter ahead, but we're constantly adding to the buffer and taking from it. It's very important for us to have this flexibility. We further worked on optimizing content creation. We reused assets. We started reusing sounds as well, because after we have like hundreds, thousands of items in the game, well, you know, the chances that you need totally new sounds for them are quite diminished. We also work to have a bank of pre-approved assets, pre-approved names that have already been cleared by legal, so we can use them directly. Don't be afraid to play with quality. Good enough is your friend. This is very, very important. I have a saying that a lot of artists share with me, that art tasks tend to last as long as they are given. So don't hesitate to reduce the time allocated for content creation and see what happens. Until now, I never encountered a situation in which I had to kind of like send something back, or this wasn't good enough, you need to kind of like work on it. So even when we are adding new, if someone new comes to the team to help on our side, we may offer a generous amount of time initially, but then we tend to cut it in half and then cut it in half and see how that goes. And again, as soon as they start getting familiar with the project and with the details, they realize that they can deliver very good work in less time, because it fits the need that we have. And of course, tools, adopt tools. We're using a lot of Substance. It was really nice. I discussed with the artist, the 3D artist, about this. And at the start of the project, we weren't using Substance that much. And in time, we started using it, and now they're kind of like strolling through materials. So with all of these, let's see where that takes us. This is a very good example of applying everything that I previously presented and shared with you. In the center, you have a clan boss that basically is based on one of the squad mates. I have a big highlight on this one, which is based on a gear set. So we first created the gear for the character, then we created this squad mate, then we created other squad mates from this model, this one, and this one, and that one, and that one. And then we used retexturing to create new models from those. And then we kind of like mixed things to create a new gear set, reusing the headpiece, but changing materials, changing colors, and of course creating squad mates from it, and then coming back to the big clan boss. So this is full scope reusage adapting of this content. Of course, this was released through several years, so it's not like we are releasing something this month and then the next month we are already changing the texture and we are reusing it again. But be mindful of the content lifetime span. For the weapons, this was the center weapon was one of the weapons that we initially created. A lot of effort was put into this one. The brief was like a voodoo inspired crossbow. And then the artists tried to figure out how to add effects, how to add animated items to it. So this was the original, the OG one. But then we eliminated the details and created the top, left, and right versions, which are much simpler, but they are new weapons in the game, new content. And then working on textures and materials, we created the bottom row. So again, same model, same animations, but new items that feel different, that play different, that might cause new effects on the enemies. The bottom left one, I think, sets them on fire, as the middle one, the others don't set them on fire. So you can play with many things or systems or features that you already have in the game, and just by changing the look, create items that feel different and add new value to the player experience. Talking about the late stage process now. As a reminder, we started with the full pipeline. Then we reduced the concept artist. And then we thought, okay, let's see if we can further optimize, further improve on this. And we said, hey, maybe we can, since we are reusing the same models, then we don't need new dedicated sets of animations for the weapons. From time to time, of course, you may create some specific animations if the model is very different or very different from before, but not always. So then we thought about textures. Again, as artists became more and more comfortable with creating content and learning about the game and Sniper Fury, they were comfortable in creating, using tools, using Substance, using other methods to create new textures by themselves. So that puts the 3D model and the 3D artist in the middle, and with a touch of a wand and a nice effect, it becomes 3D artist, all caps. So now we have a team, quite small, but they handle everything from the 3D model to the texture to specific animations if they are needed. So in time, as the project evolved, as the product evolved, as the team evolved as well, they learned and become more comfortable and more proficient. And now they can also onboard new people really fast and really okay into this kind of way of doing things, into the culture of the team. An example of the content volume that we are creating now, Update 55 launched last month, a few weeks ago, and this is the type of content that was added in that update. Spread across several sources, several features, several events, and across several types: weapons, gear sets, squad mates, camos, flags, bullet skins, hollow badges, hollow boards. It's around 100 items, but they are all created using all the steps that were previously presented. So, you know, if you set out now and you say, hey, let's create 100 items for Sniper Fury from scratch, that can be daunting. But if you have enough experience and if you have enough familiarity with the project and use all the tricks, it's doable. And here is a look of how the live operations plan looks for us. It's basically, it covers the December month of 2021. And you can see we had like various types of sources. This is very hard. Sources in the top, and various examples of events and content type. Here we are using squad mates, here squad mates as well, and gear sets. It's quite diverse, and this is only like an excerpt that fit the slide. We have quite a lot, but you can see here how we use them. For an event, we might offer as rewards or leaderboards rewards. We might have some bundles. We might use them in the shop. Various ways of spreading out the content that we have. And now for the final recap, basically of what I've presented. Items are the lifeblood of live operations games. As the game expands, as the game evolves, you need more and more content. That was the case for Sniper Fury. And if that is the case, then you need to work smart. You need to apply some pointers. Buffers are your best friend. As mentioned, we aim to have 1/4 of content produced in advance. Not always happening, but it's flexible, and that helps us a lot. You need to adapt or be overwhelmed. You need to change the process, the pipeline, work with artists, work with the team, help them enter a different mindset so that they are comfortable. Because, if you go to an artist and tell him, hey, can you do this? Can you do another weapon? But in half the time, the first reaction would be like, that's complicated. It's not going to work. But in time, they grow more and more comfortable and realize, hey, I can actually do it. So adaptability and flexibility is very important. Do not overinvest. I should have bolded this one as well. A lot of times people tend to invest too much in some areas of the game that might not require that much level of investment. You need to watch over this and adapt and see if you can reduce it. If you can reduce it, do it. See what happens. If it's bad, course correct. If it's not bad, it's good. So, and listen to your players. We're trying to listen as much as possible to our players. We're trying to be on the lookout if they flag some issues with the content, if maybe they say they're bored with the content, but focus not on like a very, very vocal minority. Try to have the bird's eye view of the whole community, because every time someone might complain that, I know, he recognizes the weapon from another game, but that can be an isolated case. So don't dwell too much on that. And that would be it from my side, opening the floor to questions and answers. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adrian. I had a former boss that always used to tell me, Andrea, better is the enemy of good. Yes. And I think that's one of the most important things that you've said today, because in a way, with people such as passionate as we have in the industry, that's something that they tend to yes, not take into account. So thank you. If there's anyone who has questions for Adrian, I'm here.
Yeah, sorry, I was first. So I'm not really a mobile games player very much. So I'm not familiar with this Sniper Fury 5.
No, it's just Sniper Fury. It's the first one.
Okay, so it's the first one. Okay. So when do you decide to do another one? Stop producing content for this one? Is there a certain mindset or approach to it, or you just go along and see what happens?
That's one of the key questions I think all the industry asks itself nowadays. From experience, nowadays, if we were to think about releasing Sniper Fury 2 or creating a game, I think the context would be quite complicated for that. And when you see that it's already performing still quite well and you still have an engaged player base, then basically for us, the decision was to continue with this one and not move to something new, something else. That, I don't know if that answers the whole question, but there is awareness about the difficulty of launching something new, of creating something new. So tread carefully with this, because players might not switch from the old product to the new one. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the magic of store algorithms and stuff like that. It's quite complicated. So when you have like a franchise, especially for mobile, it might make more sense to migrate or to adapt the existing one, not create something totally new that will need new investment, new support, new store presence, new everything, going back to scratch. It's quite difficult to do. I think it's quite difficult to do nowadays what we were able to do with Sniper Fury over 7 years ago.
Second question.
How do you avoid bloating the game? And if you take stuff out, how do you decide what to take out? Analytics, but still.
Yes, we kind of like bloated the game in time, and we have players complaining that stop adding new stuff, fix existing bugs, and work on that more than instead of like, I don't know, adding new things that add further instability. Because whenever you add something new, you might cause some instability and break things. When we decide to remove something or to reduce its importance, because you need to also look at the player population. If they are enjoying the game, if they're playing that game mode, then it will be a bit tricky to completely remove it. But you might try to reduce its importance, maybe not invest that much into it, not, or maybe if it's an event, run it less and maybe have less important items in it and try to focus players' attention to other parts of the game, maybe with similar kind of like loops. And if that works in time, then work completely to remove or shut down that game mode. We have quite an old game mode, the drone ops mode, and we're kind of like eyeing it for several months, trying to figure out if we should cut it completely from the game or not. We released features that kind of like broke some things, and we had to abruptly not run them anymore. We had the famed forged feature, but that tends to be quite difficultly accepted by the community. So we need to ease in with the shutting down, with sunsetting features, and always look at both players and feature performance. And in time, if the feature doesn't kind of like make sense anymore for you, KPIs wise, and for players, they don't enjoy it, it's not like a retention mechanism for them, then you can safely remove it.
Thank you. If there are any other questions? Thank you. If there are any other questions? No? Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Thank you.
Great talk.